Nobody ever talks to us." His small hands signed the confession slowly, as if even hope had gone quiet. In a room bursting with streamers, music, and children racing through obstacle courses, 3 little boys in matching blue shirts pressed themselves against the wall, invisible in plain sight. Parents snapped photos, executives raised champagne flutes, and the CEO, hosting the celebration, never once looked toward her own deaf sons, the ones watching the party like shadows at their own celebration. No one saw them. And the few who didn't care except a single mom, an exhausted custodian pushing a cleaning cart. Rachel Torres. She knew what it felt like to be ignored until you disappeared, and she had every reason to keep her head down, avoid the memories. Sign language always dragged back to the surface, but something in their eyes, that quiet surrender, pulled her across the room. One word, one gesture. Hello. That tiny sign would shatter 5 damaged lives wide open and let the light in. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Rachel's body screamed exhaustion as she emptied another trash bin near the activity stations. 3 hours of sleep, warehouse work from 7 that morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, this emergency shift covering the annual Harrington Tech fundraiser because Sandra had called in sick, and Rachel needed every dollar she could scrape together. Her custodian uniform felt heavy. Her hands ached. At 38, she felt 70. The atrium had been transformed into a sports arena for kids. Basketball hoops, soccer goals, climbing walls, a mini skateboard ramp in the corner. Dozens of children ran wild, their laughter echoing off the glass ceiling. Harrington Tech executives worked the crowd, shaking hands with donors, posing for photos with families. The whole scene radiated success and joy. Rachel kept her head down, invisible. That's how she preferred it. Then she saw them. 3 small boys sitting on the floor against the far wall, knees pulled to their chests, watching everything with expressions that made Rachel's chest tighten. Identical triplets, maybe 7 years old, with dark curly hair and matching blue polo shirts. They sat perfectly still while chaos swirled around them. Children running past without a glance, adults stepping around them like furniture. Rachel watched a group of kids race by laughing, a soccer ball between them. The triplets' eyes followed them, hopeful for just a moment. Then the kids disappeared toward the climbing wall without acknowledging the boys existed. The triplets' faces fell back into that terrible resignation. Rachel's feet moved before her brain caught up, cart abandoned. As she got closer, she noticed the small devices in their ears. Hearing aids, understanding crashed over her. They were deaf. Every instinct told her to turn around, walk away, don't get involved, men. Sign language meant remembering Sophia, her hands flying through conversations. Her silent laugh, the way she'd sign "I love you" before bed every night, it meant remembering who she used to be before grief buried that woman alive. She stopped walking, her hands clenched into fists. But one of the triplets looked directly at her, and Rachel saw something that destroyed every defense she'd built. Not just loneliness, accents of loneliness. These children had already learned they didn't matter. What would Sophia do? The thought hit like a physical blow. Her partner would sit with them, make them laugh, remind them they were worth seeing. Rachel took a shaking breath. When had she become someone who walked away from kids who needed exactly what she could give? She sat down on the floor beside them, ignoring her aching back and the stares from executives who probably wondered why the custodian was sitting with guests. All 3 boys, startled, eyes wide with surprise that an adult had actually approached. Rachel's hands felt rusty as they formed signs she hadn't used in 3 years, but muscle memory took over. "Hello, my name's Rachel. What are your names?" The triplets' mouths dropped open. They looked at each other, confirming they were really seeing this an adult speaking their language. Slowly, the boy on the left signed back, his small hands tentative. "I'm River, this is Storm, and that's Cloud. Those are beautiful names. Why are you sitting here all alone?" Storm's hands moved with heartbreaking matter-of-factness. "Nobody talks to us. They never do." The words or signs hit Rachel like a sledgehammer. These children, at 7 years old, had accepted invisibility as their permanent condition. Not today. "Well, I talked to you," Rachel signed, feeling something crack open in her chest, something she'd kept locked tight for 3 years, "and I have an important question. Do you know why the moon never gets invited to parties?" All 3 boys shook their heads, confused but curious. because it's always going through a phase. It was a terrible joke, the kind Rachel used to tell her ASL students to break the ice back when she was a teacher, back when she was someone else entirely. But Storm's serious face cracked into the smallest smile. River's eyes lit up like someone had flipped a switch. Cloud's shoulders relaxed. "That's silly," River signed, but he was grinning. "You think that's silly? Wait until you see my mom dance." Before they could respond, Rachel launched into the most embarrassing mom moves she could manage while sitting. Exaggerated shoulder shimmies, ridiculous hand waves, a seated version of the robot. The triplets stared for a shocked moment. Then their faces transformed giggles. Then full silent laughter, their small bodies shaking with joy. Rachel kept going. She told them about the time she tried to teach a cat sign language, and the cat just knocked things off the table. She pretended to be a confused flamingo trying to stand on one leg. She made funny faces that had Cloud holding his stomach. For the first time in 3 years, Rachel's hands didn't feel heavy. They felt right. The commotion drew every gaze. Parents paused mid-photo. Children froze with basketballs in hand. At the edge of the celebration, a single, exhausted custodian, Rachel Torres, single mom, had 3 little boys in matching blue shirts, bent over in laughter. Their laughter rang out clear, loud, echoing down the hall above the music and chatter, even though they couldn't hear the sound themselves. Their curls bounced, their shoulders shook. Their laughter flew like bright sparks in the air. All eyes turned. Event staff whispered to each other, pointing across the atrium. Diana Harrington stood frozen mid-sentence, her pitch to a potential investor dying on her lips. She'd been so focused on closing this deal, on maintaining the company her late wife had built, on keeping everything under control because control was the only thing preventing her from falling apart completely. But now her sons, her precious River, Storm, and Cloud were laughing. Really laughing the way they hadn't since before the accident 18 months ago that had killed their mother and taken away their hearing, leaving their voices quiet ever since. Diana watched this custodian sign fluently, her expressions animated and warm. Watched her sons light up like stars, their hands flying in conversation, their faces radiating pure joy. She was doing what Diana should be doing, what she'd failed to do. Despite all the tutors and classes and expensive therapists, shame burned through her chest like acid. The investor said something. Diana didn't hear it. She excused herself and walked toward her sons, her heels clicking on the polished floor with each step. Rachel noticed her approaching a tall woman in a designer suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Her dark hair perfectly styled, her face carefully composed. When she reached them, River, Storm, and Cloud's laughter faded. They sat up straighter, their joy dimming. That told Rachel everything she needed to know about their relationship. "You speak sign language," Diana said. "Not a question." "Yes, ma'am. I was just keeping them company. They're my sons." Diana's voice was tight. "I haven't seen them laugh like that in I can't remember how long." The guilt in her eyes was unmistakable. Rachel recognized it. She saw the same thing in her bathroom mirror at 3 o'clock in the morning, when she wondered if she was failing Maya. "They're wonderful kids," Rachel said quietly. "Smart, funny. They just needed someone to talk to them. I should be able to do that." The words came out raw. Rachel started to respond, but Diana shook her head. "I need to talk to you after the event, please." The fundraiser ended at 7 o'clock. Rachel was collecting her supplies when Diana appeared in the doorway of the storage closet. She'd lost the confident CEO mask. Now she just looked tired. "Can we talk 5 minutes?" They ended up in a quiet corner of the employee break room. Diana sat across from Rachel, her fingers twisting together, a nervous gesture that made her seem human instead of untouchable. "My name is Diana Harrington. I own this company. Those boys, River, Storm, and Cloud are my sons." Rachel nodded, waiting. 18 months ago, my wife was driving them home from a soccer game. A drunk driver ran a red light. Her voice trembled. Lauren didn't survive. The boys were in the back seat. The impact damaged their hearing almost completely. She swallowed hard. They can still use their voices. But after the accident, they barely try. Words hurt. Speaking reminds them of what they lost. So now they mostly sign and laugh when they feel safe enough to let joy slip out. "I'm sorry," Rachel said, meaning it. She knew that. Wait, the way loss compressed your chest until breathing felt like a luxury you didn't deserve? "My partner died 3 years ago, an aneurysm. She was 39 years old and her brain just ... stopped middle of a Wednesday morning while she was at work. The memory still had claws. Getting the call from the hospital, rushing there, being told Sophia was already gone, Maya screaming for her mama in the waiting room. She was deaf from birth. We communicated entirely in sign language. I was an ASL teacher at the community college. That's how we met. She came to a workshop I was leading. We built our whole life around that language. Diana asked softly. I quit 3 months after she died. Couldn't do it anymore. Every sign reminded me of her hands. Every gesture felt like reopening a wound that wouldn't heal. She gestured to her custodian uniform, took these jobs instead. Warehouse during the day, custodial at night. Been running for 3 years. But you stopped running today. Rachel thought about River, Storm, and Cloud's laughter. About how her hands had felt right for the first time since Sophia died. Yeah, I guess I did. Diana leaned forward. I want to hire you to teach me sign language properly, to teach me how to communicate with my sons the way you did today. I'll pay you whatever you want. Rachel started to refuse automatically, but she paused, really thinking about it. Today, when she'd sat with those little boys, she hadn't felt the crushing grief she'd expected. Instead, she'd felt connected to something good to Sophia's memory, without the pain drowning everything else. To the passion she'd once had for teaching, to the woman she used to be. Maybe running wasn't helping. Maybe honoring Sophia meant doing what she'd loved most, helping people communicate, building bridges, making deaf children feel seen. Maybe it was time to stop punishing herself for surviving. I don't want your money, but I'll teach you. Every evening before my night shift, 6 to 8.2 hours, relief flooded Diana's face. Thank you so much. One condition, you bring River, Storm, and Cloud to the lessons. This isn't just about you learning signs, it's about rebuilding the connection between the 4 of you. Tears spilled down Diana's cheeks. Okay, yes, we'll be there. That night, Rachel went home to their small apartment and found Maya sleeping on the couch, a sketchbook open on her chest. Her neighbor, Mr. Kim, had let himself in to watch her like he did every day. Bless him, Rachel gently shook Maya awake. Maya blinked up at her, her long black hair falling across her face. Mom, you okay? Rachel's hands moved slowly, hesitantly, forming signs she hadn't used with her daughter in 3 years. I met 3 little boys today. They reminded me that your mama would want me to stop being afraid. I'm going to start teaching sign language again. Maya's eyes went wide. Then, tears streaming down her face, she signed back. Mama would be happy. Rachel pulled her daughter into a hug, both of them crying, finally allowing themselves to remember not just the pain of loss, but the beauty of what they'd had. The lessons started the following week. Diana arrived at Harrington Tech at 6 sharp with River, Storm, and Cloud, who practically bounced when they saw Rachel waiting in the conference room. The first session was awkward. Diana struggled with hand positions, mixing up similar signs, forgetting movements she'd practiced at home. Her sons watched with patient surprise, clearly shocked their mother was really trying, but she kept showing up every single evening, sometimes straight from important meetings, still in her power suits, other times in casual clothes, having left work early to pick up the boys herself instead of sending the nanny. Rachel watched her transform. The rigid CEO mask cracked further with each lesson. She laughed at her own mistakes. She lit up when she successfully signed a complete sentence. Most importantly, she started really seeing her sons not as problems to solve, but as the funny, smart, loving children they were. River taught her the sign for rocket, because Diana mentioned missing their old model rocket launches. Storm signed jokes Rachel had taught him, making his mother laugh until tears ran down her face. Cloud showed her the sign for music, explaining he could still feel the vibrations, even if he couldn't hear the notes. During their 3rd week, while practicing, River's small hands moved deliberately. Mom, you're getting better. Diana's face crumpled. I'm so sorry it took me this long. It's okay, Storm signed. You're here now. Cloud nodded agreement, then added, That's what matters. For weeks into the lessons, Rachel's neighbor, Mr. Kim, called with bad news. He'd fallen and broken his wrist. Needed to rest for a few days, Rachel's stomach dropped. She couldn't afford to miss work. Maya couldn't stay home alone. Bring her with you, Diana said when she explained before that evening's lesson. The boys have been asking about her anyway. Rachel hesitated. She'd mentioned Maya during lessons. The triplets were always curious, signing questions about what she looked like, how old she was, if she knew sign language too. But bringing her felt like mixing her broken personal life with this fragile new thing. "Rachel," Diana said gently, "it's okay. Really, bring her." So that evening, Rachel arrived with Maya in tow. Her daughter clutched her backpack straps nervously, eyes huge as they walked through the gleaming lobby with its marble floors and expensive artwork. "Mom, this place is really fancy," Maya whispered. "Wait until you see the conference room," Rachel said, trying to sound confident even though her heart was hammering. What if the kids didn't get along? What if this was a mistake? When they entered, River, Storm, and Cloud were already there practicing fingerspelling. All three boys looked up, and their eyes went huge when they saw the girl with long black hair standing beside Rachel. "This is my daughter Maya," Rachel signed, gently pushing her daughter forward. "Maya, these are the boys I told you about. River, Storm, and Cloud." Maya stood frozen, and Rachel's chest tightened. Her daughter hadn't really interacted with other kids much since Sophia died. She'd become quiet, withdrawn, spending most of her time alone drawing or reading. What if then Maya's hands moved slowly, carefully, forming signs Rachel hadn't seen her use in years? "Hello, my name is Maya. Nice to meet you." River, Storm, and Cloud's faces exploded with surprise and delight. "You know sign language?" Cloud signed excitedly. "My mama taught me," Maya signed back, and Rachel saw her daughter's eyes glisten. "She was deaf like you." A moment of heavy silence, understanding that only children who'd lost parents could share. Then Storm stood up and walked over to Maya, looking at her with serious eyes. "Our mom died too, in a car accident. My mama's brain stopped working. I missed her every day." Rachel glanced at Diana and saw tears streaming down her face. Both parents watching their children connect over shared grief in a way that was both heartbreaking and beautiful. Then River joined them, and suddenly he was signing something that made Maya's face light up. "Do you want to see us do backflips? We've been practicing on the gym mats." Maya's face lit up. "I can do backflips too." Just like that, the heaviness lifted. The four children moved to the open space, and suddenly they were attempting backflips with spotting from the adults, giggling River, Storm, and Cloud silently. Maya out loud competing to see who could land the best one. Rachel and Diana abandoned the lesson plan completely and just watched, amazed. "I can also do the splits," Maya signed when they all collapsed on the floor, breathless. "Show us," Storm signed eagerly. Maya demonstrated a nearly perfect split that earned enthusiastic applause. Then Cloud wanted to try, and River insisted he could do it better. And suddenly, they were all taking turns, laughing at failures, celebrating successes. "I haven't seen her like this in 3 years," Rachel said quietly to Diana. "She's been so sad, so withdrawn. I thought maybe that was just who she was now." "They haven't had any friends since the accident," Diana replied, voice thick with emotion. "Other kids at school don't know how to talk to them. They eat lunch alone, play alone. I thought maybe that was just how it would be." They watched Maya teach River, Storm, and Cloud a hand-clapping game, the four children's hands moving in complicated patterns, stumbling, laughing, trying again. "Your mom is funny," River signed to Maya. "She told us a joke about the moon." "My mom tells terrible jokes," Maya signed back, grinning. "Want to hear the worst one?" All three boys nodded eagerly. "Why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything." River, Storm, and Cloud groaned and laughed simultaneously. And Maya looked so proud Rachel's heart could have burst. Then Cloud got serious. "Do you talk to your mama?" "Like still, even though she's gone." Maya's smile faded, but she nodded. "Sometimes at night, I tell her about my day. Mom says it's okay that she can still hear me somehow." "We talk to our mom, too," Storm signed. "Mom says she's watching over us." "Maybe they're together up there," River added. "Maybe they're friends now." The simplicity and hopefulness of it that their lost parents might be friends somewhere made both Rachel and Diana turn away to wipe their eyes. As the evening wound down, the four children were inseparable. They exchanged favorite colors, Maya purple, River green, Storm red, Cloud orange, favorite foods, unanimous agreement that tacos were supreme, favorite animals, a lengthy debate between wolves, eagles, and sharks. "Can Maya come back next time?" Cloud asked his mother, his small face hopeful. Diana looked at Rachel, who nodded. I think that can be arranged." When it was time to leave, all 4 children hugged goodbye. River, holding on to Maya extra long, making her blush. As Rachel and Maya walked to the parking lot, her daughter slipped her hand into Rachel's, something she hadn't done since she was 6. "Mom," Maya said quietly, "those boys are really nice. Can we see them again, not just at lessons?" Rachel looked down at her daughter, at the hope blooming in her eyes, at the faint smile still on her lips. "Yeah, sweetie, we definitely can." That night, after Maya fell asleep, Rachel sat in the dark living room and cried, but not tears of grief this time. Tears of relief, of gratitude, of something that felt dangerously close to hope. Her daughter had laughed today, had made friends, had remembered her mama without drowning in sadness. Maybe they were both finally learning to live again. After that evening, everything changed. Maya came to every lesson, and the lessons evolved into something more. Family time. Diana started bringing dinner, and they'd all eat together in the conference room, the children chattering in sign language while the adults looked on with full hearts. Rachel started turning down warehouse shifts. The money was tighter, but Maya needed her present more than she needed extra cash. And when Diana found out, she didn't just offer her money, she created a real job. ASL coordinator for Harrington Tech's new accessibility program. "It's a real job," she said when Rachel tried to refuse. "Salary, benefits, health insurance, regular hours. You develop training programs, work with our HR department, help us become a truly inclusive workplace." "Diana, I can't." "Yes, you can, and you should, because you're good at this. Rachel, you're good at building bridges, and you deserve stability. Maya deserves a mother who isn't exhausted all the time." So Rachel accepted. For the first time in 3 years, she could breathe, could be present for her daughter, could sleep more than 3 hours a night. The romance between her and Diana grew gradually, like spring after a brutal winter. Quiet conversations after the children fell asleep during movie nights at Diana's house. Coffee meetings that stopped being about sign language and started being about everything else. Stolen glances across conference tables, hands brushing when they both reached for the same teaching material. Neither of them rushed it. They'd both been in love before. Both carried ghosts that deserved respect. But slowly, carefully, they built something new. 5 months after that first fundraiser, they were all at Diana's house on a Saturday night. The children were in the game room, Maya teaching River, Storm, and Cloud a complicated video game while they taught her a strategy game they loved. Diana was in the kitchen, and Rachel found herself standing in the doorway watching her daughter laugh with the triplets. For the first time in 3 years, she felt whole. Not healed. Grief didn't work that way. Sophia's absence would always be a tender place in her heart, but she'd stopped running from it. She'd learned to carry it alongside the new joy filling her life. Diana appeared beside her, slipping her hand into Rachel's happy. She signed with her free hand. "Yes," Rachel signed back. "Finally." That night, after all 4 kids fell asleep in sleeping bags in the game room after an impromptu camping-themed movie night, Diana and Rachel sat on the back porch under the stars. "I never thought I'd feel this again," Diana whispered. "Me neither, but maybe that's what second chances look like. Not replacing what we lost, but building something new alongside those memories." Diana leaned her head on Rachel's shoulder. "Lauren would have liked you. Sophia would have loved you. Probably would have hit me if she knew I'd been running from sign language for 3 years. Diana laughed softly. "She sounds like she was amazing." She was, and so was Lauren from everything you've told me. "I think they'd be happy we found each other." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to crickets and distant traffic, to broken people who'd somehow managed to fit their jagged pieces together in a way that worked. 24 months after that fundraiser, Rachel stood in Diana's backyard wearing a suit that actually fit for once, her heart pounding as guests took their seats in neat rows. Maya stood beside her in a matching vest, fidgeting with her tie. "You nervous, Mom?" Maya signed. "Terrified." Rachel signed back honestly. "Good terrified, though." River, Storm, and Cloud appeared in matching gray suits, carrying small bouquets, their faces glowing with excitement. They took their places on the other side, and then music started soft and sweet. Diana appeared at the end of the aisle in a simple white dress carrying wildflowers, her face radiant with a happiness that had taken 2 years to build, but was worth every moment. The ceremony was short and sweet. The officiant spoke, but Rachel barely heard the words. She was too busy looking at Diana, at their 4 children standing as witnesses, at this impossible family they'd built from broken pieces. When it came time for vows, Diana's hands moved through sign language as she spoke aloud, her voice steady and clear. Rachel, you taught me that showing up is an act of courage, that learning someone's language really learning, it is an act of love. You gave me back my sons, and you gave them the friend they needed in Maya. You gave us all permission to grieve what we lost, while still choosing to build something. Beautiful Rachel's hands shook as she signed her vows. Diana, you taught me that running from pain doesn't make it hurt less, it just makes you miss the good stuff too. You and your sons reminded me that my hands were made for building bridges, not pushing people away. You gave Maya her smile back. You gave us all a reason to stop just surviving and start living again. The officiant pronounced them married, and as they kissed, 4 children stood to the side, signing, "I love you," in perfect unison. Maya, River, Storm, and Cloud siblings, in all the ways that mattered. At the reception, as the sun set and string lights twinkled overhead, Rachel watched the 4 kids run around the yard playing tag and laughing. Diana stood beside her, her hand in Rachel's, both of them marveling at the impossible beauty of this moment. 2 years ago, I was invisible, Rachel said softly, just a custodian pushing a cart, trying not to remember who I used to be. 2 years ago, I was drowning, so focused on control that I couldn't see my sons were drowning too. And now, Megan smiled. Now we're exactly where we're supposed to be. Rachel thought about that fundraiser. About 3 little boys sitting invisible against a wall. About the choice she'd made to walk over instead of walk away. About how one hello in sign language had cracked open 5 broken lives and let the light pour in. They'd all been shattered. They'd all been lost. But somehow, in finding each other, they discovered that broken pieces could fit together in ways that were even more beautiful than before. Not because they'd forgotten what they'd lost, but because they'd chosen to honor those losses by living fully, loving bravely, and remembering that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop being invisible for yourself and for others who need someone to finally see them. As the evening faded into night, Rachel pulled all 4 children into a group hug. Diana's arms wrapped around them all, and she felt Sophia's presence like a whisper in the wind. Not sad, not gone, just quietly proud. You did good. She could almost hear her sign. You all did so good. And for the first time since that terrible Wednesday 4 years ago when Sophia's brain stopped working, Rachel allowed herself to believe it was true. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, if it reminded you that second chances exist, that broken doesn't mean beyond repair, that sometimes all someone needs is to be seen, please don't let it end here. Let it remind you kindness still matters, compassion still changes lives, and hope is never wasted. Subscribe and be part of our family, where every story lifts the spirit and reminds us that light always finds its way back. And if this moment moved you, share it, because sometimes sharing hope is the kindest thing we can do.